You might be thinking, my God, we've covered a lot when it comes to compute services. But remember, compute services is literally an entire other machine, an entire new computer that you are setting up and getting to do your bidding. So there's a lot that goes into it. And there's one last thing that we need to cover is around running databases on your compute services. So how does this work? Well, when you are setting up a database, you've got a couple of different options. We've got what we call managed databases and then unmanaged databases. If it's a managed database, it means that you can just focus on the database and a lot of the other surrounding stuff that goes into setting it up and making sure that it's running on a server and everything is all handled for you. You don't need to worry about it. But optionally, there's another way, which is what we're going to talk about here, which is where you can set up your database on a virtual machine or an EC2 instance, and then you get a lot more control over it. There's a lot more configuration that you can do, but it comes with the extra management of having to set it up from scratch. So let's take a look. So you can set up your database on a virtual machine using EC2 instances like we talked about in the past, or you can even run your database on containers, which is even kind of more crazy. But the cool thing about it is that it does give you more control. So you can fine tune specific functions. You can configure the database software to be exactly as you need it, and you have more control over scalability. So you are responsible now for scaling the resources that go into managing this database, which gives you a lot of flexibility, but it also comes with more management. So if we look at the advantages of using a managed database versus doing it with compute services, there's a couple of key things to be aware of. With our managed database service, so on this side, it's much easier to manage for sure. But, it can handle a lot more changing workloads, and you can focus on the dev and not the database admin or management, which might be great for some scenarios. But if you have very specific database needs, you know this is going to be complicated, it's going to be very unique, then you might want to be hosting your database on a compute service instead, which gives you a lot more precise control and means that you can handle any unique requirements that you might need and that you can use specific database software. So it's up to you in your use case, but just be aware that this one is going to take a lot more management than this one, which is designed to automate a lot of that management for you. So how does it actually work if you do want to do this using compute services? Well, step one is to actually choose your compute service. So if you are using EC2 or containers, you need to decide that upfront. Next, we have your environment. So you're going to have to configure whatever you choose in this first one, whether it's an EC2 instance or whether it's your containers, to actually be able to handle your database. For EC2, this means instance types, security groups, storage, and networking. For containers, this might mean Docker template, computing power limit, memory, and more. Then you need to install and configure your database, which is step two. You might use MySQL or PostgreSQL. You need to adjust the parameters, manage your security settings, and just optimize everything to fit exactly what you need. Then there's the data migration itself. So if you're migrating a database, then you might want to migrate that over. There's tools in AWS for this, like the database migration service. And then finally, you need to make sure that you cover your security, set up any alerts, make sure that all of your bases are covered. Setting up your own database is a big decision. Do you want to go with a managed service or not? Typically, you would set it up on computing services. If you wanted something very custom, if you were a very large business and you knew that this was going to be around for a long time, if you had legacy apps that need very specific database software, or if you just need very precise control over your entire database environment. Otherwise, just go with a managed database service. Happy learning. We'll see you in the next video.